Today I am going to introduce myself as a lecturer in English, teaching English in plus 2 classes. Myself, Mr Duryodhan Meher, retired principal of Meher College, Kuntara, district Samalpur state. Today I am going to teach you a prose piece called The Legend Behind a Legend, written by Hariharan Balkrishnan. Introduction. Hariharan Balkrishnan is a writer and columnist. This article was published in the literary page of the Hindu, 22nd January 2006, Unit 1st. Warm up. A legend is a story or a narrative about a very famous person. People are also referred to as legends if they have been unusually successful in their own fields or work. The title mentions two legends. Who are the two legends mentioned in this unit? Why are they termed legends? What did the author plan to do when he came to know about the two? Read the following unit of the text to find out the answers. Text. Khari made the entire forest where she lived famous. That means Khari was a small tigress who made the whole forest where she lived as famous. She was not a Pandit queen but Khari, the tigress of Josipur. Khari was not a Bandit. Bandit means female dacoit. But she was a tigress of Josipur, name of a place in Odisha. It was exactly 25 years ago when I spent 2 days and 2 nights with Khari and the managers of Saroj and Nihar. I had read a small news item in the Statesman about the latest exploitation of a domesticated tigress in the Simlipal forest of Odisha. In other words, it was about 25 years ago when the author spent 2 days and 2 nights with Khari, the tigress, and the managers of Saroj and Nihar. The author had read a small news item in the Statesman about the latest exploitation of a domesticated tigress in the Simlipar forest of Odisha. Suddenly it struck me that this was happening in my own state. So the author actually came to know that this matter actually struck him that all these are happening in his own state called Odisha. I thought, why not attempt to experience it myself? So the author actually thought himself, why not he take an attempt to experience it myself in his own state when all these are happening. I spoke to N.S. Iyengar, a senior journalist in Barampur, and a few other elders. So the author wanted to speak to a South Indian wise man called N.S. Iyengar, who was a senior journalist in Barampur, a town in Odisha, and a few other elders contemporary to him. I was told that Khwari was under the care of a right gruff and rough man called Sarojraj Chaudhary, who broke no nonsense and suffered no fools. That means the author actually told that Khwari, the small tigress, was under the care of a very rough and tough man called Sarojraj Chaudhary, who broke no nonsense and suffered no fools. I got his address and wrote asking if I could visit him. So the author actually wrote a letter, and on the envelope he wrote the address, and he asked Sarojraj Chaudhary if he could visit him in near future. For good measures, I referred to a few itinerant articles I had written for Indian magazines. So the author actually, for good sake, he referred or he meant to a new itinerant articles he had written for Indian magazines published throughout India. It was a shot in the dark, and I did not really expect to hear from him. So it was a shot in the dark. That means there was less time on his part. So the author did not really expect to hear from him. But to my utter delight, I got a letter within a week inviting me to Khwari Josipur, giving precise instruction about how to reach there. So the author actually got a letter, reply to his letter within a week, inviting him to Josipur, where Khwari was living, giving small and precise instruction about how to reach there. Mr. Chaudhary also asked me to let him know in advance how and when I was visiting. So Mr. Chaudhary asked the author to let him know in advance how to reach there and when to reach there. I gave him a date and said I would be taking a bus from Bhubaneswar on a particular night. So the author gave Mr. Chaudhary a date and said he would be taking a bus from Bhubaneswar on a particular night to reach Josipur. Unit 2nd, warm up. How did the author reach Khwari Josipur? How was his welcome at Mr. Chaudhary's house? How did Khwari greet the author? Read the following unit of the text for the details. Text. I packed my bag, took the train and boarded the overcrowded bus from Bhubaneswar. The author packed all his bag and baggages, boarded the train, and he also boarded another bus from Bhubaneswar to reach Josipur. I arrived sometime before 4 a.m. wondering where to go in that semi-darkness. The author reached before 4 a.m. in the morning, early morning. He wondered and he marveled where to go in that half darkness of the dawn. To my utter surprise, within a minute there was the click of boots and a voice welcoming me to Josipur. The author was surprised within a minute. There was some sound of boots and a voice which was welcoming him to Josipur. The forest guard detailed to escort me, took me to the guest house, put me in my room, assured that water was a jug. There was a forest guard who escorted him to the guest house, put in the room, and gave assurance that water was ready in the jug for drinking sake. I could sleep as long as I wanted and Sahib would see me as soon as I was ready. So the author could sleep as long as he wanted to sleep, and Sahib would see him as soon as he was ready. I think I had an hour of blissful sleep. The author thought that he had an hour of peaceful and blissful sleep on the cot. I woke up with a start when I heard the unmistakable voice of the tiger just outside my door. The author woke up with a strange voice which was given by a tiger outside the house of the author where he was living. I was terror struck. The author feared a lot. Within minutes, a bearer came to the room with hot tea and biscuits. After some time, a peon came to the room of the author with steaming cup of tea and some biscuits. He smiled at the expression on my face and assured me that it was only Khori outside the door making friendly inquiries about the new guest in the house. The author smiled because there was a strange sound made by Khori outside the house, and she wanted to know how a new guest is residing in the house, in the guest house. I finished my tea, had a quick shower and went to the main house. The author completed his cup of tea. He had a good bath and he went to the main house where Mr. Chaudhary was living. Suraj Chaudhary was sitting on a large chair. There was a sloth bear behind him, holding on to his waist and making gurgling sounds. He said, "Get down, Jambu, get down," and rose to greet me. A frail man in his 50s, slightly balding on the top. We got talking. I didn't find a gruff and tough, no-nonsense man. What I found was one of the most human beings I had ever met in my life. That means Surajala Chaudhary was sitting on an armchair. There was a lazy bear behind him, and the bear was holding onto his waist of Mr. Chaudhary, and he was making a gurgling sound, a particular sound. He said, "Get down, Jambu, get down," and rose to greet him. Mr. Chaudhary said to the bear to get down, and he called its name Jambu to get down, and he rose to greet the author. A frail man in his 50s. Mr. Chaudhary was nearly 50 years of old by that time. Slightly balded on the top, he was bald-headed person. We got talking. Both of them started talking. I didn't find a gruff and tough, no-nonsense man. He did not find such a strong man in his life. What I found was one of the most human beings I had ever met in my life. The author had never found such a strong man like Mr. Chaudhary. Really, Mr. Chaudhary was a very perfect person. He had some compassion and kindness for everybody else in his life. Unit 3, warm up. Mr. Chaudhary had many interesting stories to tell about Quarry and the other pets at his home. Read the following text for the details. Text. Here is the first story that emerged from his very unusual man between sips of coffee. As you will see, I have different species of wild animals in his house. That means this is the first story which started from in an unusual person between sips of coffee. Mr. Chaudhary said that he had a different species or kinds of wild animals in his house. They all came in at different stages of their lives. All the animals came during his life at different stages. I had debunked the theory that they cannot coexist unless they are together from infancy. So, all the animals who were living in the house of Mr. Chaudhary were very close to each other, one another, and they could not leave one another separately from their infancy. One thing I wanted to experiment with was the reaction of a young tiger to a snake. There was one thing which the host wanted to make an experiment was that the reaction of a tiger with a snake. One day when Quarry was much younger, we found a baby cat in the house. So one day what happened? Quarry was much younger at that time, and both of them found a baby cat, a small snake in the house. As you know, cat is one of the most poisonous snakes. All of you know that cat is a very poisonous snake. It was noting Quarry's reaction to its presence. They observed the reaction of Quarry in the house. Quarry was curious to know more about this strange new creature. Quarry, the small tigress, was very anxious to know more about this strange and wonderful new creature. Every time the cat got too close to quarry, I would pull it back its tail. So whenever cat the poisonous snake was going closer to quarry, he would pull it back by its tail. This went on for some time. So this hide and game went for some time. At some point, I must have been a little unmindful. Chaudhary became unmindful for some time, for a while. He turned round and beat me. So the poisonous snake called Krat turned round and bite him. I immediately tied a turning coin above that and got the poison out. So Mr. Chaudhary tied a small piece of cloth and got the poison out from his body. I saw the doctor as soon as possible. Mr. Chaudhary went to a doctor for consultation. Luckily it was a baby. Anyhow, thanks God, it was a small cat. Still some of the poison got into my bloodstream and as a result I am now a permanent patient of hypoglycemia. Although Mr. Chaudhary brought out the poison from his bloodstream, still in consequence he became a permanent patient of a disease called hypoglycemia. By the time he finished this astonishing story, Jambu took a fancy to me and climbed behind to give me his bear hug. Jambu, the bear, with a matter of fancy and wonder, climbed behind to give him a hug. A stern no from Soroj was enough to dissuade him from this expression of fondness. Soroj said no to dissuade Jambu from his expression of likeness. As the day progressed between our conversation and the intermittent cackle on the VHF wireless set by which he was giving instruction to his men in the forest, I got to know a veritable joint family that was living inside the compound: a manguch, a pangolin, wild cat twins, a country dog, and a blind hyena. Each had a name. So the moment Chaudhary got a message from VHF wireless and instruction to his men in the forest, he got to know a veritable joint family that was living inside the compound or house of Mr. Chaudhary. There were different animals like a manguch, a pangolin, wild cat twins, a country dog, and a blind hyena. And every animal had a separate name. Unit 4. How did Soroj Raj Chaudhary come across Khari? How does he recount the story of his past meeting with Khari? As a cop, read the following unit of the text for the details. Text. Khari's story started on October 5th, 1974, when 12 Korea travels of Simlipal brought a 2-month-old tiger cub to Saroj Raj Chaudhary, an officer of the Indian Forest Service. So the story of Khairi, the tigress, started on October 5th, 1974, and two Korea travels people of Simlipal forest brought a 2-month-old tiger cub to Mr. Chaudhary, who was an officer of the Indian Forest Service by that time. Saroj noticed that it was a female famished and confused. Mr. Chaudhary found that Khairi was a female, hungry, and it was very confused. His past experience of what was to become his passion in life was angry, snarl, and scratching claws. So the first experience of Mr. Chaudhary was that he had a passion during his life that was an angry gnarl and scratching claws. But the veteran forester and instinctive lover of wildlife knew how to handle a hungry, angry cub. But as he was a veteran or an expert forester, he was an instinctive lover of wildlife, and he knew how to handle a hungry, angry cub. He imitated the sound of a mother tigress. Khairi imitated or followed different sounds of a mother tigress. Within minutes, her confidence was firmly anchored in the fostering human is how he recalled those first few minutes between the legends. Within a short period, the confidence of Khairi was resting upon the fostering human, and the host person called Mr. Chaudhary recalled those first few minutes between the legends while he was telling. Early next morning, Saroj started for his inspection of the tiger reserve area. On the next day in the morning, Saroj Babu started for his inspection of the tiger reserve area. I tagged along in the jeep that snagged through narrow road in the woods amidst lush foliage. Mr. Chaudhary went on a jeep, and the jeep was going in a zigzag manner on the road among the woods and foliage. His mother gave him a gun for my mother gave me a gun for my 8th birthday. The mother of Mr. Chaudhary gave him a gun on his 8th birthday. As a young man, I shot wildlife with abandon. Mr. Chaudhary was killing wildlife with abandon. But soon I realized that there is greater happiness in conserving these beautiful animals that do no wanton harm to man is one of the things he told me about his life during that long travel. So, Mr. Chaudhary realized finally that there was greater and much happiness in conserving or preserving all these beautiful animals that do no harm to any human being. At that time, he was an authority on the tiger and director project Tiger in India. By that time, Mr. Chaudhary was the director of Project Tiger in India. Saroj introduced the tiger tracing method of tiger census, where the pug marks of each animal with distinctive measurements and characteristics are meticulously recorded. So, Saroj introduced for the first time the tiger tracing method of tiger census, where the pug marks of each animal with clear and distinctive measurement and characteristics are carefully recorded and kept. For the night, we camped at a guest house deep in the forest. For that night, both of them resided at a guest house deep in the jungle or forest. It was a wooden structure with functional rooms and a bath. There was a bath room and some other functional rooms in the house made by wood. It was built on stilts and stood a good 15 feet above ground. That means the house was made of wood and the house stood 15 feet above the ground. I experienced for the first time one night atop a magnificent mochan. For the first time, the author actually experienced one night or a single night on the top of a beautiful, wonderful and magnificent mochan which was made on wood. Unit 5th. Did the writer meet Mr. Chaudhary for the second time? What new animals did he see there? How long did he stay with Mr. Chaudhary? Read the text below for the detailed text. I want to query Josipur again after 3 months as I wanted to know more about query. So the author went to visit Josipur to see query after 3 months. The author wanted to know more about Khari the tigress. Saroj was gracious enough to welcome me once again. So Mr. Chaudhary welcomed the author heartily. In addition to my old friends in that house, this time I found an 8-foot long addition, a young python. During his second visit, the author found another but interesting creature called an 8-foot long python. Within the next couple of hours I continued my quest of the man and his passion. So for the next couple of hours, he continued his quest of man and his passion. But then there was a wireless message from Wildlife Fund. Suraj was asked to immediately catch a flight for an important meeting at New Delhi the next day. So he got an important message from the Wildlife Fund and he went to New Delhi for a meeting by a flight. We drove to the Dum Dum airport and saw him off at Calcutta. So they went by a car to Dum Dum airport situated in Calcutta and saw him off. That was the last time I met this legend behind a legend. So this visit was the last visit and he met this legend behind a legend. That means that man became a legend in just over 3 months. Khori died. After 3 months, Khori the tigress died. Suraj Chaudhary did not live much longer. So also Mr. Chaudhary did not live for long. A unique tale of the tiger ended there. The story of Khori, which was a beautiful and an interesting story, ended there. A salute is due at least now 25 hands. So he saluted for this after 25 years. Thank you, thanking you all.